Hey, Case, we got some breaking news about the Jeep Wrangler 4xe and the Grand Cherokee 4xe, the plug-in hybrid.
Yep.
And this is pretty important, so we thought we should get it out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it's not the kind of news that we like to hear. There's a fire risk advisory for those plug-in hybrid Jeep models that is coming from Stellantis, and it affects from 2020 to 2024 Wrangler 4xEs and 2022 to 2024 Grand Cherokee 4xEs.
Yeah, in total, we're talking about 154,032 vehicles. And this is pretty serious because, well, why don't you read what the statement says? And keep in mind, this is a voluntary recall from Jeep, but it's still pretty serious.
So here's what they say. They say that a routine company review of customer data led to an internal investigation that discovered 13 fires. All of the vehicles were parked and turned off, and the company estimates 5% of affected vehicles may have this defect. Right now, what they're recommending to customers is they're saying that the vehicle risk is reduced when the battery charge level is depleted, so accordingly, owners are advised to refrain from recharging out of an abundance of caution. The company is also advising owners of these vehicles to park away from structures or other vehicles until the remedy is obtained, and they say a remedy should be imminent.
Yeah, that's pretty scary, right? Basically, I mean, that's a nice way of saying don't park your Jeep inside.
Yeah, it's never good news. Yeah. Ugh.
And I mean, the good news is that this is a voluntary recall. And what's the remedy?
Well, they say that they're going to do some form of a software update from the sound of it, and they say again that this is imminent and that affected customers will be notified when they may schedule a service to actually have that remedy implemented.
Yeah, and then if you're worried about your car affected, which it probably is because it affects every 4xe,
Seems like
there's a phone number here that you can call 1-800-853-1403 or visit Mopar/recalls. And I've got that website right here actually. It basically talks about what they plan to do, as we said. And then the other kind of bad news is there's also an investigation that was launched earlier this year in July into a loss of motive power. In other words, some of these 4xEs would just lose power, which is also a dangerous situation because if you're going down the highway and all of a sudden you floor it to get out of the way of a semi and nothing happens, well, then bad things happen. So this has not been a great rollout for Jeep with their plug-in hybrids. Now let's talk about what the Jeep 4xe is because we have reviewed these quite a bit. So basically it gets about 20 to 25 miles of all-electric range if you plug it in overnight. And then of course there are 3 buttons on the console which let you do some interesting things. So you can use the battery while you're driving it, so it kind of works like a hybrid,
Yep.
Or you can save the power in the battery for when you need it. In other words, when you're sneaking home at night and you want to be quiet.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Europe and you've got, a law that says you can't drive in a city with an internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
Or you can actually have the car recharge the battery.
And it's nice theoretically because that 20 to 25 miles of all-electric range can cover a lot of people's daily commutes. It would cover mine, so you could go home, plug it in, and be able to do all of that electric driving. It doesn't add a ton of weight to the vehicle. It also allows you to use some parking spaces where you can go plug in that you wouldn't be able to use otherwise. So it's a nice system in theory, but it definitely adds some complexity to the powertrain, and it seems like, yeah, we're having a little bit of an issue around that.
Now, if you are outside of the U.S. and you think you're not involved, I have some bad news for you as well, because in addition to the 154,032 vehicles that are affected in the U.S. market, Canada is also estimated to have 14,038 vehicles, Mexico 673, and certain markets outside of North America 25,502. So pretty much every 4xe built around the world, it looks like, is affected. Now Jeep is saying that they will, when you bring it in, either recalibrate or update the software, and if needed, they will replace the high-energy battery. But this recall sounds very familiar. Remember when this happened with the Chevy Bolt?
Yeah, exactly. This is not unprecedented for vehicles of this type. And there's a lot of powertrains that you can get on the Wrangler. You can get the Pentastar. They've made it with the 2-liter 4-cylinder, the 392 as well, and this plug-in hybrid option.
But the 392, the Pentastar are not affected. And then the only option with the 4xe is that 2-liter
the
turbo.
four-cylinder.
Yeah. Now with the Bolt, when it happened, there was good and bad. Of course, the Bolt is all electric. So when GM recalled the Bolts, first generation, for also potentially catching fire and starting your house on fire, it did tank the reputation of the vehicle. But then the good news that came out of it was that GM did replace the batteries on all of those. So if you had put a lot of miles on it and you had degraded the battery, then all of a sudden you got a brand new battery. And that was because I think of electrodes that weren't quite connecting correctly, if I recall. I don't want to speak out of turn, but this could be a chance. I'm looking at the bright side. If you've driven it a lot, to get a new battery out of the deal.
Yeah, potentially if you've got a Wrangler that's going on 4 years old, and like you said, you've put a lot of charge cycles through that battery, then potentially they'll replace that battery. It'll be interesting to see maybe if it has any impact on values, but that's all speculation. For the time being, again, if you own one of these vehicles, you can go to mopar.com/recalls, or you can go to the NHTSA website, plug in your VIN to figure out if your vehicle is affected. If it is, you'll also be getting a letter in the mail.
And for a while there, in the CARB states, which are California states basically that conform to the California rules, you could only buy 4xEs.
Yeah.
So for a while there, Jeep wasn't shipping any of the V8s or any of the V6s to those states. So that's why they sold so many of them. I think it's got to be a pretty serious blow to Jeep because, as you know, Stellantis, and we've been doing a bunch of videos on this, has really been struggling. And now all of a sudden to get one of the most popular models, at least places like California, here in Colorado, completely recalled. It's got to be rough. So let me ask you this case: if you owned a Jeep 4xe, would you park it indoors or would you roll the dice? I mean, 5%, dude, affected vehicles may have the defect. That's a serious number.
5% doesn't sound like a ton, but when we're talking about 154,000 vehicles, that is quite a lot. Obviously, these cars have also been around for a number of years now, so it's not like they're just now hitting the roads. So if you've had a vehicle for 4 years and it hasn't been problematic,
chances are it probably won't catch fire and burn your house down.
Out of an abundance of caution, I would park mine outside as well. Yeah, it's
plus you're not. They're suggesting or they're recommending that you don't charge it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the benefit of that electric system is not.
It's gone away.
It's gone away. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing a lot of teething problems. And it's funny, for a long time, there was a huge push to buy electric vehicles, and then all of a sudden electric cars became, passé, and then plug-in hybrids became the in thing, and now we're seeing this with Jeep. So it's teething. I mean, we're learning. Anyway, guys, let us know in the comments below if you have a 4xe and if you're going to actually park it indoors. And as always, where should they go for more news, views, and real-world reviews?
Well, you can go to alltfl.com, and on there's also an article that we have put up about this same issue, so you can read a little bit more about it there.
Yep, we'll see you next time. Ciao.